Hi, this is Jeanette from Happy Spots and Ink Spots. In today's video I'm going to be showing you how to use Twinkling H20s to watercolor your image. I started off by stamping my Whiff of Joy image. This is a new image from the 2012 collection, the baby collection. And I've stamped it off on this watercolor paper, which is by Fabriano. And I've used Stays-On ink to stamp it. So I'm going to just put my H2Os that I've selected to use. Now these are hard, so they had to be reconstituted. And how I do that is I take one of these misters and I just sort of spritz them a little bit. And that is going to reconstitute them. So I'm just going to set them aside a little bit and just wipe down my area. I'm going to be using a water tank brush. Okay, these are my preferred brushes to use. They're filled with water. I just find them a lot easier to work with. And I'm just going to say that I'm by no means an expert in watercoloring. It's just that I've had a lot of requests for a video to show how I do it. So you're going to notice on these water tank brushes there's two little sides that say push, so you just push down on that to bring the water down through here onto your bristles. And I like to say you want to have it a little bit damp, but you don't want it soaking wet. So I usually run it on my hand, and when you feel that little bit of dampness, that's what you're looking for. Now, when I'm going to be coloring the background of my images, that's what I start with. I just find it easier so I don't drag any of the brown of this mouse into the background. If the brown is already there, that generally tends to happen. So I'm going to just zoom in a little bit. So this has been sitting for a minute or so with the water on it, and you're going to see that it does create a really nice sort of liquidy paste, I would say. So I've got some color on my brush. I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to go along the periphery here of my image and start adding it. And then it's important to have your paper towel to wipe out with. I'm going to start just blending that color away like that. I'll do the same here. I'm going to drag some of that color over this way and do the same thing. Really, at this point, what you really want is to get rid of that line and just blend it so it sort of fades to nothing. And as you see, I just keep wiping that excess color off on my paper towel. Okay. So that area I'm really happy with. I'm going to move on. I like to work in smaller areas just so that it doesn't dry up on me. So again, I'm going to be putting the color around the periphery, and then wiping off the excess. And then I go ahead and start blending. Just go working outwards so it just fades off to nothing. If you find your bristles aren't wet anymore, you just sort of push on the side again. That's going to release some water. Okay, and I tend to turn my image around just to make it easier for me to manipulate. Okay, so I'm going to leave the bottom portion here uncolored with the blue, and I'm probably going to be putting a sort of darker gray or something down there, but I'm not going to do that right now. So that color, because I know you're going to ask, is called Summer Breeze, and I'll put the link to all these things at the end of this post or end of this video. Okay, so the next color I'm going to be using is called Blushing Caramel, and it's a really pretty color for this little mouse. And again, I'm doing the same thing. I'm going to go along the sides, sort of filling in that color. And the thing about these H2Os is they twinkle, they shimmer when they dry. So the coloration is really, really pretty when it's all done. So same thing, I'm just blending it. I'm blending it towards the middle. The middle is where I want to see my highlight. The sides is where I want to see my shadow. And your goal here really is to get rid of any lines. You don't want to see where the color starts or ends. There. And I'll go ahead now and work on the other side. And I hope it's not too distracting to have me keep turning this. Just going ahead and adding a little bit more. Okay, so really your goal is to have your color really dark around the sides, and you're just blending it inwards, and you don't want to see at this point, you don't want to see any lines. If you happen to add too much water, what happens is it sort of dries with the line, but that's okay. You can go in once it's dry and sort of blend out that line again. So now I'm going to work on the body here. So again, I'm just applying this where I want to see my shadows. And I work in, you know, sort of small sections. I did get a little bit of extra color there, so I'm just blending it out. All right, keep that in the frame for you. Now, as I said, I don't know if the way I watercolor is typical of how others do, so this really is just the way I do it to get results. It may not be correct, but it's what works for me. Just went ahead and added a little bit more there to get more shadow. Okay, just this little bit is going to be quite dark, so I'll just fill that all in. And now it's time for the tail. So okay, so I'm going to give that all a chance to dry.